globalist, true nationalist. We believe in Canadians first, love and compassion for our people and country. This should be common sense to every Canadian. Since Pierre Trudeau, over about 50 years now, Canada has been taken on a globalist, hyper-globalization agenda. The country has been sold out by globalist interests. They are dictating the direction of the country and what's going on and the intake in. This is very troubling. We are being transformed literally from a nation state into a globalist state with no distinct identity, no distinct heritage, no distinct cultural norms, no distinct values. The main engine is mass migration. Last year alone, there was over 1 million migrants, largely third world migrants, that entered the country. So tonight's presentation is about globalist state versus nation state. And where do you stand on this? What do you want? Do you want a globalist state, globalist village? Where there's no distinct identity, culture, traditional Canadians are relegated to a minority, discriminated against, pushed down? Or do you want a strong nation state, united, strong patriotism, strong values? Do you want that strong? Secure borders? Prosperity? Which one do you want? Here's Frank Raymond. He will be on next week. We will have Frank on. He's a Canadian author. He's a true nationalist. And we're going to have him on to dig deeper into this important topic. But mistake not, this country has been sold out. NCA is committed to taking our country back from the globalist sellouts in Ottawa, the LibCon establishment. They are rotten globalist sellouts to the core. The mainstream media, the fake mainstream media, the indoctrination in the schools, universities. This is all going on. The capitulation to the UN and its affiliates, like we saw at Davos. The exaggerated climate change agenda, existential threat, creating fear, fear-mongering to propel global world order, a liberal international order. Most recently, Kanzak. Official policy of the so-called Conservative Party. This is being fast-tracked in the background. Britain was just talking about it. This is a Commonwealth Union, similar to the EU, open borders. You are being pushed aside. You don't matter to the LibCons in Ottawa. These people have contempt for you. They have contempt for democracy. You need to resist. Get behind NCA. Let's listen to what Frank has to say.
You have to understand from this one fragment and multiply it with the millions of such fragments going on every day, what is said on every channel, every evening, every morning, that the whites of all the multiracial countries are now people under occupation and worse, colonization and genocide. They're under laws that render them slaves, fearful to speak, fearful to even say the name of their people, we white people. You'll never hear that. Fearful to speak for their interests as a group. And worse, their very minds are occupied, stupefied by the constant, unending barrage of propaganda, both blatant and insidious, that rains upon them from every university, television channel, movie, and newspaper.
Traditional Canadians are also extremely divided, programmed. The libcons out there, they call themselves conservatives. They don't even know what it is. They're supporting the so-called Conservative Party, which has been globalist for decades. The Liberal Party, same thing. They both support liberal international order, aka global world order. When are people going to wake up to what's going on? We're living in an Orwellian society. The government was just talking about controlling online media, having to register, which is more controls over media and what's being said. We've been censored. During the federal election, Facebook shut us down, basically. The mainstream media ignored us, and when we were on there, we were completely vilified. This is the society we live in. There's no open dialogue on migration, immigration. The reason there isn't is it's full of holes and inconsistencies. Yet, it's critical to their globalist agenda. Because that's creating the replacement, the transformation, literally. And these are facts. Let's get back to Raymond here.
In sum, they're in a dangerous situation, 2 generations away from total genocide, and it is especially dangerous because alien enemies control the medium of information, discussion, and of the formation of the thoughts in your mind. It is necessary to see through the fog and the mental tricks, and there are many deceptions and mental tricks. Today, I'll discuss just one of them. I shall discuss one of those swindles. It is the perversion of the very meaning of the terms nation and country. I'll just make a request. So can you tell me 5 minutes ahead? Yeah. What is a nation? From time immemorial, it's been a racial group, a subgroup of the human species. Julius Caesar came to Gaul, and in the Jura Mountains, he encountered the nation of the Helvetii. They were on the move, searching for a new homeland. Today, the Swiss still use the term Helvetia to refer to themselves, to denote that they are the descendants, the race of the Helvetii. The Jews are scattered all over the planet, yet they are a nation, a racial group that feels a sense of togetherness, unity, commonality, and common purpose. But a nation to survive and flourish and live out its race soul needs a parcel of land that they and only they occupy. A nation that has a land territory of its own calls it their homeland. And when a nation, a racial group, has its own land, then we have a nation state. Then we have a country. A country is the combination of a race group with a specific territory. Japan is the combination of the Nipponese race with the 4 islands that make up the territory of Japan. If you replace the Japanese people with, say, Congolese on those 4 islands, it will not be Japan anymore. The Swedes are being replaced on their land rapidly. When the Swedish people are replaced, it will not be Sweden anymore. For a while, the Africans and Arabs there will call it Sweden, but soon the colonists will speak their ethnic languages, and they will give the territory a new name, if they can remain united and not have a bloody race war of who will enjoy the land, the Africans or the Arabs. So there you have the 2 elements of a country and of a nation state, the race and the territory, blood and soil. Note that Canada is not a real country anymore. It is a state, but it is not a nation state. Hence, it is not a country. All states that are not nation states inevitably dissolve and end up in chaotic misery. They all do. Canadians can look forward to the same.
There's Frank telling you as it is, very direct. We're going to have Frank on next week, but he's arguing that nation state, the basis is ethnicity, race, and land combined. And he's right. Canada is no longer a nation state. It's a globalist state, and it's going to get more globalized if this continues. It's going to be a hyper globalist state at some point. There's already growing ethnic enclaves. There's potential no-go zones. There's division, fragmentation in the society. And it's increasing. It's going to be chaotic and it's going to increase. But this is what's going on. Canadian people have no say. This is all top down from the globalist sellouts in Ottawa and these puppet politicians, the Libcons, playing their game. But this is what's going on. It's not too late. But this is the reality of Canada. Traditional Canadians, primarily European Canadians and our Aboriginals, are being replaced. This is part of the globalist state and the replacement. Dr. Kaufman has documented it, researched it out of University of London. By 2100, traditional Canadians will be less than 20% of the population. This is all planned and organized. This country has been sold out by these globalist puppets in Ottawa, without question. We're an experiment to create this globalist state. This is what's going on. I'm going to shift to the end of Frank's statement here.
Now I'm reminded of something I saw on television. A young woman was a member of some Jewish organization in the US. And some people had said, we're kind of sick of paying out vast sums of money in various forms to Israel. You know, you're exploiting us, you're sucking our blood. Well, this young Jewish woman responded, you haven't yet mentioned the shared values that unite America and Israel. She takes cold hard cash from American pockets and deludes you with smirking offers of empty values. Kind of like the scallywags who gave the emperor clothes made of air until a youngster shouted out, the emperor has no clothes, and soon white people will have no land. So, at the end of it, I'd say regarding this argument about values, yes, a nation does have certain essential values. You know what they are? The essential value of a nation is its race and ethnicity. The second value is the land it lives on. Those are the two values. If you'll allow me, I could say more, but if you like,
We're going to shift now. There's a libertarian rebuttal. We're going to deconstruct him. But this ties into our presentation on Koch and the Atlas Network, which has infiltrated the so-called conservatives in this country. They're completely been taken over by the globalist Koch Atlas Network, the Montreal Economic Institute, the Fraser Institute, even Rebel News, Levant is tied into it, and on and on. Go look at our video. But we're going to talk about that now. But Frank's making a good argument. Give us your feedback. He's saying ethnicity is essential to a nation state. So is land. Share your comments on that. We believe ethnicity is the glue of communities, society, of country as a whole. When it's all fragmented, you're losing. You don't have a nation state. You're going into a globalist state. This is all according to plan. They're pushing down anyone who speaks up. Anyone. You're called racist, you're called hateful, you're called white nationalists, you're called on and on, Nazi even. Unbelievable. This is the Orwellian society we're living in. The best way to deal with it is to resist and fight back. If you do nothing, it's just going to get worse. So here's the libertarian guy, and there's lots of these fake libertarians in Canada. A lot of them are in media. But we're going to dissect this libertarian.
Better than to see her and say Ben Shapiro in the White House in 2024. I am a supporter of Trump because he's reducing taxes. He doesn't go far enough. I would end the income tax. And also, he's reducing regulations, all very positive for the business. Yeah. But I don't agree on certain policies of Trump, and I don't agree on certain policies of what were being advocated by Candace Owens. She said some of the same things which Raymond said. One thing which got her a lot of applause was, if we lock our homes, why can't we lock our country? And among a libertarian audience, she got a lot of applause for that. Well, I am completely in favor of locking your home. There is no problem at all. Your home is your castle. You decide whom you meet. You decide who's to be kept out of it. Not only that, even in your business, you decide whom you entertain, whom you don't entertain. People here attended the Sprots conference. How many people attended the Sprots? Yes. One thing which Rick Rule was saying was that they select their exhibitors. They don't give an equal opportunity to everyone and anyone. They select on basis of integrity, honesty, and whatever other criteria that he may have. As Doug Casey would say, it's all about exclusivity, not inclusivity. Not being inclusive, it's all for being exclusive. Even a gay person is not served by the best cake maker in town. That's his right if it's against his religious beliefs. I particularly find that practice aberrant. I will not go to that cake maker, but I'll protect his right to not serve anybody because it.
We're going to dig deeper into this. That's just an introduction. This he claims to be libertarian. We had a guy on our page, Roman Good. He was arguing that this guy's a fake libertarian. True libertarians, Roman argued, don't support open borders because they realize that having all these migrants come in is going to impact their liberty. They're going to lose their liberty. This guy, he's claiming to be libertarian. He wants open borders, voluntary movement, no borders. It doesn't make sense because you're going to lose the nation state. And you're going to have the globalist state. But if we accept Roman's argument that true libertarians support a secure border, but then it doesn't make sense by cutting government down to next to nothing, cutting all the regulations, that's going to impact the liberty of most civilians. So we argue true libertarian, if that is what it is, leads to nationalism, NCA, where we're finding a balance. We have secure borders. We decide who comes in, who leaves as a country. We have responsible government. We're not going to eliminate government, but it's going to be in the best interest of the people. See, if you cut all the regulation, all the government, then it's a dog eat dog, and those with the most power will dominate and exploit those with less. It'll be a very hard society for most people. But we're going to get back to this guy.
Agriculture. Productivity means innovation, productivity means trade, productivity means immigration to people where they can go and maximize the comparative advantage they have, and that's the only thing which is going to result in progress. So to destroy, to save jobs is the worst thing you can do. And where I come from in India, at one time, the entire India banking system shuddered to a halt against the use of computers. They said it will destroy jobs. Today, if you try to take the computers away from them, they will go on strike. So jobs are meant to be lost. Innovation, trade, and immigrants will destroy jobs so that we can do more productive jobs. Otherwise, everything would have been destroyed. Now go the other way. Start halving the population until you come to 1%. I don't know about you, but if you were stranded on the island, I can't even repair a fuse myself. I will not be able to survive. I can't hunt and gather. Those days are gone now. Each person is doing such specialized work that you try to tell him to do everything. That's nonsense. The only reason how we can get away from the phobia of foreigners is by having trade, by getting over and becoming interdependent. There's no need to be doing everything yourself when you can buy it cheaper from outside. Absolutely no reason. So I would open the country to trade, to immigration, to movement of capital. It's all about voluntary interaction. And nobody has ever given me a worthwhile answer of why we should stop voluntary interaction. Is it about culture? I come from Dubai. Dubai has 9 times more foreigners than local people. 9 times more. Just Google it up and see. It doesn't affect their culture at all. They don't give them voting rights. I'm saying don't give any voting rights. They don't give any welfare. I'm saying don't give any welfare. Law and order. There are people in the airlines, Emirates, sometimes they make the announcements, people from 28 countries. That's how we become the best in the world. Emirates airline is arguably the best airline in the world today. It has crew from 28 because you get the best people from all over the world. And that's exactly America's strength. So this business of keeping the America white only is just going to be destructive to America. And if Raymond, you really mean that, then you should be the first person to leave America. I don't see you being white yet. Unless being white is an idea and a metaphor. America is an idea, and if you tell me that immigration has to be stopped, then throw the Statue of Liberty into the sea. I cannot even say that you send it to some other country because America is the last chance the world has, and no other country deserves it more than America.
So there's this libertarian, fake libertarian, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to unpack what he's saying, but he's basically supporting voluntary interaction, voluntary movement, basically no borders. You can, if you're living in Pakistan, you can voluntarily come to Canada, come to US, according to this so-called libertarian. It's very troubling. It's eliminating the nation state. But then what's worse is he said, oh, we won't give them anything. There'll be zero welfare. There'll be zero benefits. Basically exploit them. So he sounds like Koch now. The Koch Brother and the Atlas Network. And that's what they do, is exploit foreign labor. They bring it into the country. And they displace national domestic labor. This is wrong. So we're getting back to globalist state versus nation state. This so-called libertarian is supporting a globalist state. No borders. Free movement. Voluntary.
Some wretched refuse. Now, There are many people who say diversity is our strength and immigration makes us all stronger. Well, there was a great debate in a program called Question Time in London, in Britain, when the BNP, the British National Party, had gained 2 seats. And because this man was invited to speak on national television, a nationalist, hundreds of thousands of people, mainly Asian, blocked the streets and caused riots. But in that debate, Mr. Jack Straw, foreign minister, and at one time home minister, spoke, and he said at the end of it, immigration is diversity is our strength, and immigration grows countries, something like that. But diversity is our strength. Well, Mr. Jack Straw is a Jew who was a champion of Israel. Why doesn't he call for diversity in Israel? But let's look at the facts a little bit. Long before diversity, this present wave of diversity, Britain had an industrial revolution. It invented the steam engine, the steam catapult, the Bessemer converter, the natural gas principle, the internal combustion engine. It invented all those things. It sailed all around the world. It discovered Antarctica from North Pole to Antarctica. Hundreds of inventions, the greatest literary outburst in history, and the greatest social advances by thinkers such as Locke, Hobbes. All the ideas of social democracy came out of Britain. And then Britain became diverse. And what inventions did it produce after that? Gee, it fell into debt to historic levels that will never repay. It's now an overcrowded country that cannot feed itself. It has to import its food. And it's a thoroughly mediocre country. So on what basis does Mr. Jack Straw say diversity is our strength?
Frank's making a good point there. It's not diversity. In our times, it's extreme diversity. And it's all part of this globalization of Canada. And it's happening in Britain, France, Germany, even the US, Australia, and New Zealand. But he makes a good point there about how it's undermining the productivity of a country. It's creating division, fragmentation. You don't have the ethnic glue that's uniting the country. Meanwhile, it's top down, and there's increasing censorship and beating down anyone who's questioning. I'm going to move further into this.
Without violating the natural rights of your citizens, such as freedom of association. Raymond, please.
Then Donald Trump can say,
Raymond, please. Just a couple quick questions to see if I can set a trap and then spring it. First of all, would you agree that you cannot have coercive state control over a border without violating the natural rights of your citizens, such as freedom of association and freedom of trade?
Absolutely, you can have it. Japan has it. South Korea has it.
But in order to do that, are they not violating the freedom of trade and freedom of association rights of their own population?
Not at all.
That
No
takes
ethno
care of
state
that.
is violating.
Yeah, if you wouldn't accept that premise, that pretty much takes
No,
care of
I
that.
don't accept that.
Okay, thank you.
That was an interesting exchange, but that gentleman there, he doesn't acknowledge the nation state and the need to have control over the borders of the nation state. Otherwise, you don't have a nation state. So he's another libertarian, so-called libertarian, who wants voluntary movement, no borders. this globalist state.
Actually, can we give Rakesh a second just to answer? Please make it brief.
I'll make it brief. You know, what has happened is that he's saying it can be done. It cannot be done at all. The restriction on unreasonable searches and seizures has been removed. A 100-mile zone from all American borders is now practically constitution free, which means that the border control, the TSA and other people can search you and check your documentation within 100 miles of the whole border, whether it's Canadian border, the American border, Eastern Sea. If they commit a crime, deport them. It will add to the strength of America. Nobody talks about Canada because Canada doesn't have enough people. It's another matter that America is, going around 100 countries. It should not be doing whatever it is doing now, but America needs more people to compete with China, and I would rather have America as the superpower instead of China becoming the superpower.
Thank you, Rakesh. We had a question over here on this side. Okay. Let's let Frank respond, please. Yeah, please.
Okay, sir. The point about open borders is they only argue for open borders for white countries. And open borders means just that, as understood. People will not only come in and work, they will get citizenship, and if they don't get it, they'll say, you're violating your ideals of equality. The purpose of open borders is to flood people in and make them colonists who will never leave the land, and they say so. We are not leaving. We are not going anywhere. Now, Mr. Wadhu is arguing that they work for cheap. He's arguing that, you can exploit them for a while and you'll be a little better off. But you can only exploit them for a while, and you're not really exploiting them, they're exploiting you. When they come in, they work. But they also work for themselves. They got to eat, they work in the farms. They've got to buy stuff, they work in the shops. They create jobs for themselves at the expense of the local people. They overcrowd the land, pollute the water and the air, and they deplete the resources. Now, secondly, they are also faster breeding, as Mr. Wadhu has been very generous in pointing out, which means that not only will they refuse to leave, it'll be like the red squirrel and the gray squirrel. The gray squirrel came from America to Britain. Within 3 generations, there were no native red squirrels left, because the gray squirrels bred more rapidly, and they ate up the resources. They competed for the same resources, and they genocided the gray squirrels without fighting a single one of them. Okay? So the argument for open borders is not an argument for cheap labor or temporary labor who will leave, like in Dubai. They don't pollute the culture for a simple reason. 2 years after the they come after a 2-year contract and they're told to leave.
Absolutely not. I've been there for 10 years.
Okay, but I've known many who've been asked to leave.
Another question, please.
To get asked to leave. Whites are cursed with compassion. They can be played upon, and they will never get out, these people. And let me give one counterpoint to Mr. Wadhu's thing. There was this recent incident with the squad, Ilhan Omar and Ocasio-Cortez and so forth. And Trump said, why don't they go back, indicating that you don't belong here. Well, Mrs. Ilhan Omar gave a speech to the black African women leaders. And there she spoke her mind. And it didn't come on CNN. It didn't come on MSNBC. There she said, this will not be the country of xenophobics. This will not be the country of white people.
Sir, please.
Sure. Rakesh, you cite a lot of benefits of immigration, and I was wondering if you could elaborate. Do you think that ethnic violence is an increased threat to some of those benefits? And if so, is there some sort of trade-off where a certain risk of ethnic violence is worth a certain amount of benefits that you perceive from immigration?
See, many of the things which he talks about are in the hands of the government. Infrastructure, for example, in India, telephones was called infrastructure, and it took us 10 years to get a telephone connection. Water resources and all those things which we had in short supply are controlled by the government. So you're using one government failure to advocate now another government failure. Is there a trade-off? I presume there is, But I know also if the government sticks to its basic core function of protecting life and liberty, there is no trade-off. In Dubai, in Singapore, small specks of places, 10 times more foreigners, and there is absolutely no ethnic violence, because if there is violence, deported and you're out. So the reason is they don't have to deport that many people. They just use the threat that if you are going to commit a crime, you're out. Yeah. Whether you agree with it or not, I may not agree with it, but even if you're caught driving drunk on the roads and endangering others, you're put on the next flight back home. Yeah. So I'm saying the problem lies in the laws over here. No voting rights, no welfare, no crime, get strict on crime, and you don't have a problem. Then you only have the benefits of immigration. And there is no exploitation. If I get people from India to come over here and drive my car at $2 an hour, there is no exploitation, because he's better off over here than he's over there. Entire Dubai has been created by foreigners. In fact, the infrastructure here needs to be improved. What better than gangs of Chinese, Indians, and other people to come and improve your infrastructure? And if you give them $1 or $2 an hour, and the people who are already in construction business, they have to just supervise. They will be kicked up to supervision. There is no problem at all that I see. What he's talking about is not even a problem, it's not even an issue. Voluntary interaction for a libertarian means benefits for all. Otherwise, the transaction doesn't take place. It's the same thing between immigrants and local people over here. I am not advocating the good of migrants. I'm advocating the good of Americans over here.
Raymond, would you like to comment on this question?
Yes, sir.
Rakesh. Speak to the microphone, please.
I can't disprove a conspiracy theory.
This is the Trojan horse. You see, this is saying, let us in, we're going to be really quiet, we're going to work for 1/4 the wages, we're going to benefit you, and you kick us out when you like, we'll have, we just go, and we won't demand to be made citizens. Of course, you know very well that they're demanding that every single day. You should have listened to the speech of the squad, these 4 women who responded to Trump. And the first thing they said was, this country was founded on the principle of equality for all. And it has a long way to achieve those ideals. They write them down, but they don't treat us equally. They're demanding the vote. They're demanding places in the universities. They're demanding equal pay. Because once they're in, then they'll make the demands. The Trojan horse is, we're not going to demand anything. We're just quiet little people. We're going to be very obedient little slaves and work, sweep the floors while you become the doctors. That's not the way it works. This is the Trojan horse tactic. And it is not and they correctly quote some of the ideals of the United States and Canada, equality for all. And in fact, Ocasio-Cortez gave the example of a father who was an immigrant. Apparently, she said in her response to Trump that my father, when I was a child, took me on a road trip from New York. We stopped at Washington, and we looked at all the monuments, the reflecting pool, the House of Congress, and he dipped my toes in the water of the reflecting pool, and he said, all this is yours and mine, all this is ours. And then she said, but today a president has brought that very ideal into doubt. Here's a person openly saying, all this is ours. Do you really think that this is not what they want?
Question over here, sir.
There you had that very interesting exchange. You can see the libertarian or so-called libertarian, open borders, voluntary movement, complete exploitation, aka Koch, Atlas Network. They're all in the media, the so-called conservative media, pushing this agenda. Kanzak, official policy of the so-called Conservative Party, which is a Commonwealth Union, open borders, voluntary movement. The nation state of Canada is extremely endangered. It's a globalist state with elements of nation state. It's it's going to be completely eradicated, the nation state. But look at the exploitation of the so-called libertarian. Just bring them in, pay them $1 an hour. What he's saying doesn't make sense. The cost of living is so much higher in Canada compared to India. So you're going to bring the cheap labor in. What are you going to put them in slum housing? What are you going to feed them? It doesn't make sense what he's saying. What about domestic workers? Just displace them. Who cares? This is Koch, Atlas Network. Just bring the cheap labor in. Who cares? We're making money. Who cares about the common people of Canada? This is what's going on.
Wanting has nothing to do with it. People will want welfare benefits. You just don't give it to them. What has wanting got to do with anything? Yeah? Don't you think the workers who are coming to Singapore or Dubai wants this right or that right? No. And they have adjusted to that beautifully. No problem, no issues at all. You come over there, you work over there, it's good for you, it's good for the country which has sent you because they sent money abroad, and that money, the dollars which they send abroad, will again be used to buy goods from America, because that's what the use of the American dollars is, or it will come back as an investment over here. So again, it's a complete difference of opinion.
He's missing an important fact. The dysphoria in Canada. There's over 24 billion flowing. It's probably more now, flowing back to homeland countries. It's not staying in the economy. A lot of the money that is either through benefits, government handouts, or earned through honest work. He doesn't factor that in.
He believes in controls. He believes in some sort of a government stopping voluntary interaction between people. And he's saying, "Oh, this is a Trojan horse." There is no conspiracy theory. I'm saying just be logical about the whole thing and let people voluntarily interact with each other if they want to.
So eradicate the nation state, open borders, just free flow. Just a globalist state, globalist world. This is what this so-called libertarian is advocating. Global world order, basically.
But if you say it's a conspiracy theory to get people in, I'm not conspiring with anybody over here. I gave up my own green card. So where is the conspiracy theory coming over here and Trojan horse and this and that? I'm just saying that if you need to be a superpower, you need substantially more than 330 million people over here. The density of population makes it the 136th or 146th most population density by country in the world.
Frank.
So he wants to flood the country, in this case America, with migrants. Densify it. Most economists say that mass migration, has an insignificant impact on the economy, individual per capita income, and an aging population. So his argument doesn't make sense. He's saying just flood it with migrants. It'll bring prosperity. This is false. This is what they're doing in Canada. They're betting their hopes on flooding this country with migrants. At the same time, they're radically transforming this country into this globalist state. Post-national globalist state. It's both lib and con, the entire establishment that is behind it. Without a fact. You can blame Trudeau for all this, but that doesn't correspond to the facts. That is, it's been going on for 50 years, regardless of which libcon has been in power. Period. And it's getting worse.
Years ago, some 12,000 years ago. And this woman said, so these people who are coming in today in the 1990s, your people became British, they will become British too. Just step on the land and you're British instantly, right? And she said, and then you have these people you brought from Jamaica and you want to send them back? Aren't they people? You can just use them as you like. And she started quarreling and screaming like a fishwife in a third world slum. It's like, aren't they human beings? You can just use them and work them and treat them and now you want to send them back? And he had to keep quiet because he was under laws that will send him to jail if he says one thing that will offend a colored person. But that woman would never dare to say it in Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. She was Pakistani and millions of Pakistanis work in the Middle East. If she had that kind of insolence and made a claim to the soil of Saudi Arabia the way she made a claim to the soil of Britain, they would flog her in public. But whites can't do that, especially, one, they have this element of compassion and fair play, and secondly, they're under occupation. So what applies to the Middle East cannot possibly apply because it doesn't work the same way either. Those people never become citizens of Kuwait. Whereas anyone who's coming here is now, they say you have to make them a citizen. And it's a demand that white people are not able to resist right now.
I want to take one.
It's not that we're able to resist it. It's coming from the libcon establishment, top down. Multi-controlled opposition. Programming of Canadians. Pushing down anyone who's questioning. Censoring. Vilifying. That's what's going on. This is a replacement agenda. And this is the final part tonight.
I'm again reiterating that free immigration is not compatible with the welfare state. You have to get rid of it. Fight the good fight. Get rid of the welfare state. And then we won't have any problem because when you eliminate the welfare state, you can then get rid of income tax as well. Half the money of the American government is going into welfare at the moment, whether it is social security or education or freebies or whatever it is. The only principal thing to do is to eliminate it for everybody, including the people over here. That would be a big plus. As it is, Rick Rule was saying that the US government is $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities in debt and $22 trillion in debt which are funded and $1.5 trillion in budget deficits. What you need is immigrants doubling the population so that the debt is reduced to half. They will share the burden. They will have to share the burden one way or the other. And the sooner you have more people coming here to take care of your aging population and other things more, the better it will be. One thing more I want to say, Trump wanted the Mexicans to build the wall. And I tell you, there's one surefire way of doing that. Abolish welfare, abolish income tax, open the border completely. If all the Mexicans come over here, they won't, but if they were to come over here, then Donald Trump can say that I didn't give you the wall, but I gave you Mexico as the 51st state of the United States.
So there you have this so-called libertarian, free immigration. He's saying cut all welfare, cut the government, cut the regulations. So the government is bare minimum. But this is going to impact not just migrants, immigrants coming in, but the domestic population. It's going to be a dog-eat-dog society. Those with the most power, influence, will dominate and exploit. There will be no checks and balances on them. And that's the purpose of regulation. And we saw this with the wireless industry in Canada under the fake Weasel Bernier. He was tied to the big wireless companies. He cut all the regulations. And what happened was we got the highest rates in the West now. The big companies, TELUS, Rogers, Bell, they ate up all the competition. They took more market share. This is what happens. Most Canadians are now paying a lot more because of that. And be very dangerous. These liberals, Trudeau, they're really globalists. But there's another danger in our society. These are the Koch Atlas Network. These are these globalist libertarians. They are rabid in the media, especially in so-called conservative circles, and they're pushing the same thing. Open borders, cutting regulation, cutting government, all for the big companies. Koch. Don't get fooled into that. NCA supports fiscal responsibility. We support helping Canadians in need. We're not going to cut the welfare. We're not going to cut, but we're going to be responsible. We're going to put Canadians first. We're going to find a balance. We want a strong nation state. Putting our people first doesn't mean we're isolated. We will interact with the world, have alliances, mutual trade agreements. But think about what's going on here. We are heading down this globalist state. Very dangerous, uncharted water. Please share your comments tonight. We will do a follow-up with Frank